heard about my grandfather passing. I knew it was coming, right? This wasn't one of those situations where somebody just randomly dies and you hear about it. And I think that's just like a huge shock. This is one of those, you start mourning before they're even gone. They're on hospice type of situations. I actually had a conversation with my grandfather 4 days before he died, where he told me he was going on hospice. And, now it's been about 3 weeks, a month since he's passed. And it's still upsetting to think about, but I'm truly grateful that I was able to talk to him about it. And I'm going to get really in depth on, I guess the psychology of talking to somebody that knows they're going to die. But just to, briefly start it out, having a conversation with my grandfather, right? Somebody that I'm 25% related to and, is a reason that I exist. And also the main father figure in my life was truly shocking, right? If you remember, I did a hot tub stream with my friend, who's also a Twitch streamer, Koshard, and I left for 20 minutes in the middle of it. And a lot of people thought I was mad or something. No, I literally left to go talk to my dying grandfather because it was the only opportunity that I had. And I remember picking up the phone and talking to somebody that knows they're going to die is weird, right? It was the first time that I have ever spoken to somebody that truly knew they were going to die. We all know we're going to die, right? But I think there's a big difference between going, I'm going to die someday, to I'm going to die soon, to I'm going to die within a week, right? He had complete kidney failure, right? His blood was being poisoned. He had 24 hours to 5 days, and he knew that. And so when I got on the call with him, it was one of the moments that he was genuinely, I guess, conscious, because, you're starting to get into I guess a state of loopiness, especially when you go on hospice and you start getting given morphine and shit. But I call him and he goes, "Hey, Joe." And I'm like, "Yeah, what's up? How you doing?" And I don't know why I said that, right? And I don't want to say I'm glad I did, but it segued the conversation very rapidly. And I knew that he was dying through previous conversations with, obviously, my mom and everything. And it was weird because he responded and he laughed. And he said, "Not good, Joe." And I remember being like, "I'm sorry to hear that." I don't know. I didn't know what to say. But then I then immediately after, he was like, "I'm going on hospice." And he was like, I made the tough decision, and I could hear him raspy in his voice, an unease. And, I know none of you know my grandfather, but he was a very sure man, as I think many grandfathers are, right? Somebody that everybody relies on and seems like they have the answer to everything. I've talked to him about death on multiple occasions in which he's told me, we're just passing by, right? He was very casual about the idea of death, right? Not that he didn't want it, not that he didn't care that he was going to die, but more so yeah, we're going to die. And I could hear a fear in his voice, and it was sad. And in a selfish manner, I immediately started to begin thinking about my own fear of my own death, right? And how, my 80-plus-year-old grandfather living his entire life feels unsure in these last moments. And I talked to him about it, and, he ended up saying quality over quantity, which he's told me multiple occasions, and I fully agree with, right? The idea of he had the option of going on dialysis, which is basically where they filter your blood for you, but he would have to do it 8 hours a day, fucking 5 days a week. And it would, increase his lifespan by a month. So it's who gives a shit? At that point, I agree with it, in the sense of if I'm going out in a month, I'm going out in a day, who gives a fuck? And Marcus Aurelius talks about that. And the idea that if somebody tells you you're going to die in a day, or somebody tells you you're going to die in a week, it doesn't really matter, right? Because that's just such an invaluable amount of time. It doesn't matter, right? I don't know if that's the right word to use, but it's a day versus a year is meaningful, but a day versus a week, it's who gives a fuck, especially if it's going to be unenjoyable. So we ended up talking about that, and he was one of those, and I feel this is a lot of grandparents, maybe not, relatable to everybody, but at least some people. I feel like old men don't say I love you a lot. And he was going to hang up. He was just going to hang up the phone. And I was like, well, in my head, I knew this was probably the last time I was ever going to speak to him. So I was like, I love you, Pop-Pop. All right. And he like paused and he said, I love you, Joe. Oh my God, I'm going to cry. And it was sad, you know, but I'm happy I was able to talk to him in that moment, because if I hadn't gotten out of that stream, right, if I hadn't left, I would have never spoken to him. I would have never heard his voice for the last time. And that's one of the weirdest things about mourning. It brings back all these memories, right? Especially if it's somebody meaningful that's, I guess, older than you. Like if it's a parent or a grandparent, you immediately start thinking about like, holy fuck, I remember when I was a kid, and you all these memories that you haven't had in years just start popping up. And it's really upsetting because they're going to fade, right? Right now, the man that I remember is very like forefront in my mind. But as the years go, I will remember him less and less, right? I will forget his voice, right? I will forget the way he looked unless I look at a photo of him, right? And things like that are really upsetting. And this is a side conversation. Something that I love and that I want to share, I guess, is figure out your loved one's favorite music, right? Whoever you know, you probably understand some song that's attached to them. And that is, going through having somebody that I know die has made me appreciate music more than I ever have before, because not only does it transcend time in the sense that you could listen to music from 300 years ago and get a glimpse into what people are truly going through, right? Because obviously you could have historical accounts and stories and tales, but nothing really hits you emotionally more than songs, right? More than listening to the music people made in that time to truly understand the feelings and the emotions they had to put into that music. And the one thing that I will remember is his favorite songs, right? One of them was A Wonderful World by Louis Armstrong. Whenever I hear that song, I just fucking break down, man. But it, like, no matter how the memories fade, when you hear that, it instantly snaps back. And I think music is so fascinating as well, because in Alzheimer's patients and dementia patients and people that can't remember their family members, their own face, their own name, what they did, right, in their own life, when you play a song that they listen to, they immediately pick it up. They can sing along, right? Even if they don't even remember who they are, they can remember this random song that they had. And so it's like music in general attaches so much. Like we have so many memories and things that are rooted in song. And it just made me appreciate music so much more. Sorry, that's a little side rant. But another thing is, when I went to the funeral, I got to say, I hate open caskets. I think it's like, it doesn't bring back, it makes you sad, but it's not like you're staring at them, right? Not only because they're a dead body that's getting dressed up by like in a morgue in general, and they're putting makeup on them and sucking the blood out of them and shit. I'm not trying to be like fucking traumatic here, but that's what they do, right? And so when you stare at, I'm letting you know, if you've never been to a funeral where they have an open casket, I'm just forewarning you, you're just gonna be staring at a dead fucking body. I think it's less emotional in my mind than other people perceive it. I think a lot of people break down. I broke down when I looked at, it was a piece of paper. It was pictures of him, and then it was a piece of paper, and it said his name and his life, right? Like right now, everybody that's watching this video, you have the first year. My year's 2002, and then a dash. And you don't have a death date yet. But when you see that on somebody you know, it's like, that's it, right? That's the closed bracket. That's their fucking life. And that really made me more sad than even staring at his fucking dead body, because it's not him. It's not the man I knew. And another thing outside of music that made me remember him was I ended up inheriting his colognes. And the smells, man. Oh my God, I'm so happy that I was able to get those. And nobody else wanted them. And I was like, I don't know why nobody else wants these. These are fucking awesome, right? Because that's a memory and a thing, like a memento that you'll be able to attach to somebody. And I think that's so meaningful. I think when a lot of people die, immediately everybody goes to. Where are the assets going to? Where is this going to? Where is that going to? Fuck that shit. I went in his trash can and fucking grabbed the last beer bottle he drank, because that's the shit that I'll remember him for, right? That's the shit I want to keep. Those are the things that matter with the people you love. It's not the money. It's not the materialistic things. When your dad dies, when your mom dies, when your grandparents die, when your siblings die, when you die, the things that matter are the small things that remind you of the experiences of them, not the fucking US dollar attachment to their fucking life. Like, who gives a shit about that? You know what I mean? When I left, I just felt like an angry cry. If you've ever been, well, you could probably remember when you were a kid, if you got in an argument or something, you got so angry you ball your fists and you start crying and people make fun of you or some shit. Maybe that's only me, but I had fucking anger issues when I was a kid, shocker. And people would rage bait me and I would get so angry I would fucking cry. And that's what I felt, man. And I hadn't had that feeling in so long, right? I've had sadness and I've had anger, but an angry cry is like the most rare and weird emotion to feel. Not like a happiness cry you'll see in movies as well, but it's like, or you'll just experience in your life when you get fucking married or some shit one day. But an angry cry is like so attuned to mourning, and it was horrible. All I felt was like pure hatred. I was upset that whole, and I've felt that feeling, you know, in like lesser amounts over the past few weeks, but that whole day I just felt like physically, like I wanted to punch a fucking tree, man. I actually did punch a metal stall and ended up fucking bruising the shit out of my fists. But like, I felt angry. You know, I was a pallbearer as well, which is somebody that carries the casket. And that was fucking, I don't want to say a good experience, but I look back at it and I'm like, I'm happy that I did that. You know, I'm glad that I was able to experience the end days, right? That's kind of what I do like about it. I've always said I wanted to get cremated, but what I do like about casket funerals is like, not like ritualistic, but it's a very traditional sense of dying, right? You bury them, you lay a rose on their grave, and it's like, so I guess traditional, and I love that. That's what I will say I do love about funerals, is like the full like fledged story of passing of them, more than just like them being in an urn. I think the biggest takeaway that I could have is, well, two things. Number one, obviously be appreciative of the people around you, because at some point they'll be gone and you'll be gone. So appreciate the life that you have and the life that other people have and give to you, and the experiences you could share with each of them. I'm very thankful, and I've said this before on stream, I'm glad that we're all alive at the same time. I know that the universe in the future might be way cooler than it is now, but this is a time that we all can experience together, and it is an honor to be alive at the same time as many of you, and struggle and fail and succeed, right? And recognize our differences and our wrongdoings and proceed from there, right? We all experience life in its totality together, and I love that, right? Secondly, it made me realize that no matter how sure I could be at some point in my life of death, that I will never be able to fully be okay with it, right? Because witnessing a man that seemed sure of everything be unsure in those last moments, that's because having to deal with the physical process of dying, right, on hospice is so fucking sad. So sad and scary, right? And watching people having to go through that, I feel so bad, right? And I think hospice is great as well, because it's basically, hospice, if you don't know, is like end of life care. That's basically what it means. It's like if you have terminal cancer, stage 4 kidney failure, you know, you're going to die within a definitive amount of time. You're basically like put on end of life care, where instead of trying to fix the problems, they're just trying to make you more comfortable in your last moments, and they're giving you morphine and painkillers and, you know, sponge baths, and making like the last moments of your, you know, the last days of your life enjoyable. But it's like, you're not even really conscious for a lot of it, right? Like, you're just going to be like knocked out on fucking drugs. It depends on what type of hospice you're on and how bad your condition is, but, and like dosages of shit. But it's like, I don't know if that'd be the way that I would want to go, you know? And I don't know how I want to go. And I don't think there's like a real way to you. Obviously, you're not going to be able to choose, but I don't know.